Thank you, John. So who here has, brought new agents into the business and had a little bit of a struggle early on with getting them to produce? Raise your hand. It's a lot of hands. So that's why we're going over secret tips to kind of help you grow your business. And I took my business from $100,000 to over $1 million in only 12 months. So one of the main important tips I give anybody is to open up an office. You don't need anything special. It could be 4 doors with just a couple of tables and chairs. It doesn't need a bunch of money up front, and it doesn't need a bunch of people. If you got a couple of heads that you could kind of gather up to get it started, I'm telling you, the environment that you could bring into that office every single day will change people's lives. So I always say, man, from the second that they get their NPN number, we want as much exposure to the office as possible. So let's just say a guy passes his exam again today. Now, we want him around elite producers the same second we can. So he could see their schedule. He could see, the tough work that comes in, the objections that he has to go through. He could see, any ticks or trips or, that he could learn and tips from the guy that, is actually producing at a high level. Now, the second thing I would say is to try to get as many trainings as possible in front of them. So what I mean by that is to, build up your team. There's 2 ways you could do it with these trainings, right? So one, getting leaders to host the trainings, right? Guys who are able to produce on your team at a top level. This will help build them up, 1. And then 2, of course, new agents coming on, they're going to be able to learn from the top guys on your team every single day. And they could take 1 to 2 things from each and every person multiple times a week. It'll start to have a snowball effect. And a secret tip with that is to have these trainings recorded. What I always say is if you have 24/7 access to these trainings as a new agent, your training doesn't stop when that training ends. You could be at the gym, on your way to work. You could be, at your house, probably taking some notes on a desk. But the point is, you get as much training as you physically want to, and it's not limited to exactly what's in front of you. And that's probably the best tip I could give you. And then, of course, what I always say is the standard that kind of goes into your business. Keeping a high standard, no complaints allowed, nobody that's allowed to come into that office to have a negative mindset. If you kind of kill all that at the door, people that come in here, it's only winners, and that loser mindset is, removed from entering that building. Trust me, our top priority as leaders is to be able to take that time that's going to take from you to start producing and make that as short as possible. So if you're able to, offer trainings, offer resources, and then, of course, some mentorship as well, trust me, your team is going to explode off the moon. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, and kind of to piggyback off that, because I like that a lot, is one thing I always tell every single person is remove I can't from your vocabulary. Like, you should never be saying I can't. Because at the end of the day is I could help someone who's just consistently failing, but I can't help somebody who's not trying. You know what I mean? So a big excuse maker can't turn into somebody really successful because they're just making excuses. But once you turn into a big person who fails a lot, that's when you get successful because all those fails are adding up to something big. So I think that's the big thing is pushing it right out the gates and not being afraid to give up things to go further. I started when I was 18. I was still in high school. I literally didn't go back to high school after the day I started. So it's like giving up a ton of things. The week after that, I was in Arizona. I was 18. I didn't know what I was doing. I'm from Illinois, and I knew absolutely nobody I was with. So it's like taking sacrifices and moving forward is the only way to get big in this business, right? So I look back to when I opened up my first office when I was 19, and it was like $2,000 a month. It was split between 8 of us, so it was really cheap. And it wasn't anything fancy. It wasn't nice. It was in a basement, but it was better than the apartment we were working out of. And I think that's the biggest thing is having a team culture where your culture is never saying I can't, this isn't possible. It's just how can we do this? How can we do this? And that's when you start to get really good results. The other thing I wanted to talk about was kind of how to flood your business with new people, right? And utilizing social media. I think one of the best pieces of advice I got when it came down to utilizing social media was you want to make sure your profile's 80% just your life, just what you're doing on an everyday basis, and then 20% about the business. Has anybody ever seen like a insurance page and it's somebody doing 10 grand a month personal and they look like the biggest guru you've ever seen? It's weird. So you want to make it kind of more personable. It's your social media, unless it's a business account. So that way you attract people into the lifestyle that you have and they want. So that way they come full circle and want to work with you, do what you're doing, because obviously it's going to yield the results that they want. So that's really important as well. But all in all, I think like the biggest thing you guys got to focus on when building a business fast is 1, social media, 2, failing forward, and the third biggest thing is lead flow. Because people don't understand you could only do certain things, you know, with your friends, family, whatever it is, until that book of business is gone and that friends and family book is over. What are you going to do next? So the biggest tip I have is saving every single lead you get. I would buy 100 leads every single day. I would call them literally just that day, as many times as I could. And then after that, it was for my new agents. So that way there was always new leads for new agents. Everybody was getting leads. Everybody was able to make sales. And what that does is it allows your new agents that are not ready to make the investment into leads, whatever the case may be, might not be financially ready. It gives them that opportunity to see what fresh leads are like. And then you could always say, I ran those yesterday. Imagine how good a new pack would be. You know, so I think that's really big as well. It's kind of pushing that, you know, I'll help you out along the way, but this is what I do every day. It's not really a risk when you see every single person doing the same exact thing. It's an investment. Because I don't know any other investment you could pay $100 in the morning and then the next day get deposited $2,000 from one sale. Like, that's a really good ROI. So at the biggest thing with that is making sure you have that lead flow ready, make sure it's organized, and then also just have a solid book of business. Because when you're growing fast, the thing is nobody understands is you have business falling off. There's people that are wanting insurance that you're not getting a hold of if you're not organized. So getting organized is really important as well. And if you can't do it, add somebody to your business that can help you organize things, because it's going to make a huge difference when it comes to quality of business and your book of business. But that's everything I had for you guys today. Thank you guys for having us out here. Yeah. And let's have a massive day. Let's learn a lot.
And then let's go into the Ignite now. And then one last thing we always want to talk about as well is getting people to these events is going to grow your business a lot. I had people from the last convention that came back and said, man, like this completely changed my outlook on the business. And then from there was able to, you know, scale teams at a crazy amount just because of the insight that he got from the people speaking up here. So if you're not registered for a convention yet, make sure you get registered. Make sure you really, 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 you know, tell your guys, hey, listen, like we need to get everybody is there. Get as many bodies as possible, and trust me, your business is going to explode. Thank you, everybody.
Yep.